Hi, everybody. My name is Derek Bermel, and I'm the Artistic Director of the American Composers Orchestra. Welcome again to Connecting ACO Community. And this is a very special Connecting ACO Community because this is the last one. We've been through about 20 of these commissions, these world premieres, which we've been doing almost every week with different performers, featuring different performers. And I have to say once again, thank you so much to Augusta Gross and Leslie Samuels, who made the lead gift for this. And thanks to Lindsay Working, our acting president. Thanks to Aidan Feldkamp. Thanks to Jade Jang, Stephanie Polonio on the staff. And thanks so much to Ed Yim, our recently departed, but not departed this earth, just departed ACO president, who really helped design, conceive this whole program that you're going to see today. And so thank you also to Christina Jensen, PR, who's been with us this whole time. Very much thanks to them for all the work that they do on this. And for our final show today, we have something very, very special for you. We have 6 ACO musicians who are going to feature in this final broadcast. We have Diva Goodfriend Koven on flute. We have Harry Searing on bassoon, Susan Jolles on the harp, Debbie Wong on violin, Sandra Robbins on viola, and Jean Moye on cello, featuring many of the principal players from ACO. So happy to have them to premiere a piece by a very special composer as well, Brian Nabors. And Brian is going to be joining us to talk about his work, as are all the musicians. So the title of Brian's composition is called For Wounded Nations. And tell us where you are tuning in from. Let us know on the chat. You can use chat here on StreamYard to let us know. And of course, we'll be really interested to get your questions about the piece and to hear more about your thoughts on what you're hearing and seeing. And I would say, just from the standpoint of hearing and seeing, that you will be much better off if you are listening on headphones. So please do that. Please grab your headphones if you can. You'll have a slightly better listening experience. But if you don't have headphones, things will be just fine. But you may not get those rich cello tones from Jean Moye and rich bassoon tones from Harry Searing that you might get if you have your headphones on. So, and one other thing, think about using Ethernet. If you happen to have it, it works a lot better than Wi-Fi. So if it's easy for you to change over, do that now so that you'll get the piece in stunning color. In any case, I want to welcome our composer, Brian Nabors. Welcome, Brian.
Hi. So happy to be with you.
It's
wonderful.
We're talking at the same time, jinx. So, where are you joining us from?
From Birmingham, Alabama, my hometown. So yeah, I'm actually back here from Sydney, Australia. I've been back since March due to COVID-19 and the pandemic. I've been home from my Fulbright fellowship, which was supposed to go into December. But I'm happy to be home with my family during this time and to still be able to create and share and all of those good things.
Yes, I remember that you had been off to Australia on a Fulbright year, and so that must have been very disappointing to have to come back early. You are truly a man of the world. I was reading a little bit about you on your blog. You were talking about your Americanized Russian, French, Bartokian gospel jazz. All these different kinds of music that come into your musical world. Can you tell us about that and how that might be affecting or coming into the musical language of this particular piece?
Absolutely. I didn't pull out all my usual stops because I would have had hold down music, trap, hip hop beats, and everything else coming through. But it usually comes from a very spiritual place. I grew up in the gospel church. And my mother's a organist, my father's a full-time pastor, and so I grew up very much in that world and growing up playing jazz, and especially in undergrad and the jazz band. So these things kind of leak their way into every piece, but for this one in particular, it was mainly about getting back to that idea of humanity and sitting in kind of an emotional state of being. And every time I go to that place, spiritual tones from, the church and other colorful, sometimes really jazzy, but uh, colorful harmonies that really lend themselves to more sort of, I guess, serious narrative than a lot of my other music that's more playful and fun. But in this season, I just couldn't write anything that I would normally. I often say, I tell this short story. Every time I have a concert with a group of friends of mine, we always end up programming my piece either at the beginning or the end, because it's usually some big banger with, very kind of emotional sections in between. But this season, it was just mainly about sitting and where we are and having the culture of what's happening, not only in our country, but in our world, really inform what I do as a composer and how we speak to each other as human beings, excuse me, through music or poetry or whatever artistic medium you can think of. It's very true that it's the arts that truly holds everything together. You think of these big standard careers such as law and business and all of these things, and a lot of people would think that composers, well, we don't really need them. We don't really. What is this? We don't need to add the money or the funding to all of this. Maybe we need to allocate our resources to the real jobs. But what this season has taught me from my colleagues and just digging into myself, that it really is that spirit to spirit, human to human connection of music and the power of the arts that glue it all together. So just writing this piece, I tried to pull from elements, compositional colors of myself that represent that mainly, and try to create a tapestry of sound that will create a space of healing, particularly for this piece.
Wow. And so this was a particular challenge, this piece, because you had you were writing not as we normally have for our soloists during this period when people are very disconnected.
Absolutely.
But you actually had to connect 6 members of the ACO. So how did you go about imagining a piece like that and how they might put that together at this time?
Indeed. I tried to combine some of the emotional elements that I said before with some of the more compositional um, elements that would lend themselves to be able to, I guess, have the players go for a click track or what have you, but still without sacrificing, the emotional and musical integrity. So I'm thinking long lines, tones, things that kind of double in emotion and also compositional creativity as well. And so I didn't think about it too harshly in terms of getting everyone together, but not writing music that was so sporadic in a way that it would be hard to put things together. So I tried to play it safe, but at the same time, not hold back. And I have different ways of kind of going about it, as folks will hear in the piece. There are lots of luscious sort of melodies that are easy to kind of hear back and forth when you're listening to a track, and building upon musician after musician in the recording process. I'm sure the musicians will have their own stories of how it was for them, but I tried to make it as easy as I possibly could.
Yes. Well, this was also a challenging instrumental sextet, actually, the combination of instruments.
Yeah.
So you're going to hear a chance to hear these fantastic musicians each take solos and in that kind of lyricism showing the strengths of all the different players in the group. So now, and we're going to get to hear from them right afterwards. They're going to join us after they finish playing, and so to the audience, you'll have a chance to ask them questions. If you want to write them into the chat here on StreamYard, just write it in, type it in, and we'll try to get to those after we hear the world premiere of For Wounded Nations, featuring a sextet of ACO musicians, which is Diva Goodfriend Koven on flute, Harry Searing on bassoon, Susan Jolles on harp, Debbie Wong on violin, Sandra Robbins on viola, and Eugene Moye on cello in Brian Nabors' For Wounded Nations. Wow, Brian, thank you so much for that world premiere.
Absolutely. Thank all of you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, um, and and a very lyrical and very sober piece for the moment, for this moment in time, as you explained, the title "For Wounded Nations." Um, those of you who are joining us, please write in. Let us know what you thought. You could use the chat function to tell us your impressions or to ask questions of Brian or any of the musicians that you heard playing there. And here they come. Bravi to the musicians. Yes. Here they are. And I guess they'll be joining us one by one and hopefully not dropping out along the way. We know how the connections can shift and morph. Harry, I saw you come up first here. Harry Searing, the bassoonist. Bravo to you. And you've done tons of new music over the years. You played in many, you play in ACO, of course, like all the
Yep.
musicians here. And you're a heckle phone specialist, as I understand.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess it's
And
something to be proud of.
sure, you own a heckle phone, right?
No, my wife won't let me buy one. It's
Oh, I
such
see.
an obscure instrument, but I've always managed to either borrow one or rent one or steal one when I've needed one.
Is it true that there are only 17 of them in the world?
No, a little bit more than that, about 100.
Oh,
There's
okay. So,
probably only about 17 people that play it. That's probably
okay.
the real number.
Okay. Well, beautiful, beautiful playing. What for you stood out about doing this piece?
First off, Robert to Brian, I enjoyed this piece immensely working on it, and I've had like Derek said, I've had a lot of experience on both sides as a performer and also working for a publisher. I've worked for both Boosting Hawks and Shot, and that was part of my job was to evaluate new young composers. And we would have been very happy to have something like this come across our desk in our weekly new music meetings. Um, Unfortunately, I'm not at Boozy anymore or Shot, but I can assure you that this piece would have received a lot of attention, and I'm sure it will. The lyricism is just so beautiful. He creates a world um, unto itself, a beautiful world, delicate, a bit painful, but yet yearning. I mean, great lines to play. We all had something kind of meaty to play. I love the opening cello line, just kind of emerges out of that pedal tone D that I have, and everyone else is just kind of sitting there. And Eugene sounded great on that, and it was just full of things like that. It was fun to work on. That's about the best thing I could say. When you play new music, it's fun to work on. It doesn't always you don't always say that. You know, usually
Yeah.
okay, let's do it. You know, but we do. ACO is
Well,
tremendous about that, but it's fun when it's a good piece too. Makes it even more enjoyable. And it was very different from the first piece that I listened to yours of Brian. Of course, I had to listen to Growl. It was another sextet with an unusual combination of viola, cello, two-string basses, bassoon, and contrabassoon. I don't know how you came up with that combination, but it worked, and it's a fun. That's another fun piece, totally different than this. But
Yeah.
it
I
sounds
said, all
like
right, we need
it
this
sounds
guy
like
to write a piece with.
yeah. I mean, it sounds like Brian has a real penchant for the low instruments from these different instrumentations that you've been using. And I wanted to actually, you brought up the fact that both Gene and Sandy played beautiful solos, and they both disappeared for right at that moment. So something about you saying their names just made them disappear. But I wanted to go to well, here's Sandy. And Sandy, is there anything you wanted to tell us about the lyricism since you had some of the very beautiful solos?
Thank you. I'm back. You lost me for a few minutes. Let's hope I don't drop out again. I should have been born in another century, I always say. But I do love the viola, and I think Brian does. He wrote a beautiful piece. He did give me some cello lines. Sorry, Gene. But so many composers chose the cello over the viola. I always wonder why the viola doesn't have the cello lines. So I think like the cello. I happened to notice his chamber music output. We were sent a lot of music, and there was a piece that caught my attention that he wrote 2 basses, 2 cellos, and 2 violas. Is that correct? No, 1 viola. Was it 1 viola, 2 cellos?
It was one.
Yes, and the viola was the lead voice. I was very impressed with that. I've never seen a work like that. And I contacted him before he wrote the piece, and we had some very interesting talks, I have to say. And we all know what we're living through, and it's very comforting to see everybody today. We're not in the same cities. I'm not sure where everybody is. I think we have a lot in New York. I'm in Florida right now. But we talked a lot about what we're living through. And I read that he is very influenced in his writing by his history and by history in general. So we had a very interesting talk about what we're all going through, COVID, the politics, social unrest, and our commonality of my Eastern European Jewish background and my mother escaping from the Holocaust, and his Black heritage that he has infused in some of his work. So we had, I thought, in this difficult situation, I've never done anything like this, where we're playing a chamber work. So I had to imagine, I imagined I was playing with people. We all had scores. I'm losing my earphones. And I tried to imagine that I was actually playing with people, and I was here by myself. So this was an incredible challenge. This was harder than playing in an orchestra, which I've done. I think we have some people listening that I participated in an orchestral little online Zoom with a lot of people, but you can hide in the section. You can't hide in this. And a solo a cappella piece would be very easy to do whatever you want. But we had to utilize technologies that we've all probably done in commercial recording studios that we would not normally do. So we didn't have the freedom that we usually have. But I thought about what we're all going through, and that helped me to express what I think Brian gave us, which is a work that gives us some hope. I felt like there was a lot of hope for humanity, and through the arts, through music, and that's what he gave to us. This was the band I've done since March 13th, when we played the last day that any musicians.
Oh, we lost Sandy, but I'll finish her sentence because I know exactly what she was going to say. ACO was the last gig in town doing our new music readings that we do every year, and there they were, these very dedicated musicians dedicated to reading and performing the work of today's composers, and one of which is Brian Raphael Nabors. There was a question that was written in on the chat, Brian, about asking what your instrument is, and I know that, but maybe you can tell folks your connection. Obviously, it's none of the instruments that we heard here today, so you're writing for instruments that you don't play. Tell us a little bit about your connection as an instrumentalist.
Absolutely. I'm a pianist, organist, Hammond organist especially. Anything with a keyboard on it, electronic keyboard is, but yeah, you can just call me a pianist. But one thing I've really worked on throughout my whole life is really becoming one with how the players feel when they're playing their instruments, to create the most idiomatic, enjoyable experience for them, even when I'm pushing the envelope sometimes in various pieces through extended techniques, but making things so clear and kind of visceral that it really, really translates to how the players not only can physically play, but to really capture the emotions I'm trying to portray. And so I've even bought some of the instruments. Like I have a little cheap violin here in my house just to help me out sometimes when I'm dealing with different stops, and I'm just like, oh, this isn't too bad, or things like that. But to really understand the mechanics of all these things, like what strings are they playing? Where are they playing? How does it feel? And I feel like for most young composers, the most wonderful thing they can do is not only understand from a technical standpoint, but I feel like the technique of it all informs how you can really, allow your music to be expressed by players, and virtually how it feels to the listener as well. It won't sound as though anything is forced, and I try to work on that every day. even as a pianist. So I may have a very crunchy, sort of dissonant or delicious chord in one sonority on the piano, but thinking about that in terms of, a structure of instruments or any instrumentation for that matter is always a unique and fun challenge to think about within the various timbres of the group, for sure. So I love it, every minute of it. I love the whole analytical versus emotional process of it. It's just fun and fabulous. Yeah.
I wanted to ask Jean Moye, because you had some beautiful cello solos in there, very lyrical writing. And Jean, you're one of the kind of mainstays on the New York orchestral scene, playing principal in many different orchestras, from Westchester Phil to the American Symphony Orchestra to the City Ballet. Can you tell us about, I mean, you just have such a wealth of experience dealing with contemporary music, actually all kinds of orchestral music.
It's muted.
Oh, you're muted, Jean, I think.
It's muted.
Somebody had to do that.
There. Okay. The thing that's striking about this whole situation, I love the piece, Brian, and Sandy is right. Some of her lines, should be on the cello. This is more like, I look like, so we can talk about this another time. So this is more like a bass part that I have, except for the opening solo. But as far as the making of music, this is all well and good, but I really look forward to playing this, together, because as you must be aware, the intonation, the technical aspects of playing like this, you can see just the picture wasn't together, but it's just about impossible to tune music like this, right? You have to sort of be in the same room, but it's great. It's a beautiful piece, and I love it. And it's kind of fun in a way, but my own personal feeling about all this is there's not a lot that we're going to take from this. I don't mean to put it down. We have to sort of stay present, but it's really important what you were speaking to about the spirit and the spirit of music and everything. And I think I think this is good to do, because we can push the personal aspect of what we're doing, and really push people into getting ready for us to come back and really play, right? We can really hear that, and that's where I think we should just get people and make people understand, because this is really difficult to take advantage of the spiritual aspects of the music and just the technically putting it together. But this was fun.
Well, I mean, Jean, you're right. This is like a lifeline
Exactly.
that we're just kind of stringing across to bridge us to where we can all be the happiest, which is making live music together. Just the other day in my neighborhood, we had a string quartet that was playing out on the porch, on someone's porch, and everyone went around there, in Brooklyn. Everybody just gathered and was watching this string quartet, the Catalyst Quartet, was playing, but everybody was grieving, really, in a way, for this lack, this lack of community. And I guess that's what we're trying to do, is just to bring, in a way, it's like we're signifying something that is not there by having everybody come together and just make music, in this way. But there's a kind of poverty of musical expression.
Well, and I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to do things that will get people excited about coming back. So I think that when we finally do get back in the years it takes us, there'll be more people out there, that we should do things that will get more people that say, I have to hear the real thing, or I have to see the real dance, or I have to see the real play, or anything, that people will, so we'll actually be more out there for people. And it's our job to be accessible, and it's our job to put it out there so people can come. And I think there'll be more. I think there'll be more people than there are now really interested in what we're doing.
Yeah. Well,
and
Debbie, can you tell us a little bit about your experience? You do tons of chamber music. I know that's one of your specialties. And
Well, I
so
just
how is
played
that for you approaching this project?
Well, I just played my first live concert. I'm sitting outside after the concert. Everyone has left, and it was for an audience of 38 people, and it was so moving and such an emotional thing to play for an audience, and they loved it, and it was fabulous. Brian, first of all, I'm so enchanted by this work. And every time when we were doing the editing, every time I listen to it, I'm just enchanted by it. It's so beautiful. Sitting in a room by yourself, recording to a click track and the MIDI sound that you had laid down is about as far from playing chamber music or music at all as you can get. And to have it pieced together and to be able to see this performance and have it be so gorgeous is miraculous. But I understand that this is our new normal for right now, but it's crazy. It's crazy. This piece was for me. It was very easy to do because, as you said, it's so lyrical and there are not a lot of tempo changes, not a lot of intricate, fast, rhythmic things. So for me, it came together easily. So I think you achieved your goal in doing that. And bravo, it was beautiful.
Yeah, bravo to you, Debbie. And Brian, can you tell us a little bit more about the title for Wounded Nations? That was written into the chat. Someone asked that question, and I know you touched on it at the beginning, but maybe there's something to add.
Indeed. Basically, for the entirety of this piece, I wanted it to center us in the middle of what we're going through in a way that wouldn't be sort of melancholic or kind of mournful, but also just kind of a silent prayer for what we're experiencing in this moment, to just sit. And I wanted the people, I say this in my program notes, to the listeners to feel as if they could rest in the music and just breathe for a minute and really have a kind of meditative space, even though it's a more linear kind of journey at the same time, to just really take in the gravitas of everything that has just happened, to be able to process it, to get us to a place that we might be able to begin to move on, to give us some semblance of, I guess, peace. And so just thinking about, at first I think it was called Elegy for Wounded Nations, and I took the elegy out because I thought, nah, it's more of just, it's all of the feelings at once. It's hope, it's pain, it's everything. So I just want us to sit in this idea that we are wounded and there is hope. Although there is pain, there's an optimistic, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I could really hear that. There's introspection, but also kind of optimism and lyricism, which is very beautiful. Diva, you also have a lot of experience playing shows, and can you tell us a little bit about that? Because one of the things I love about the ACO musicians is they do so many different things. Because one day you'll be here doing very serious new music, and the next day you'll be doing a show, the next day you'll be doing chamber music. Can you tell us about your experiences doing all those different types of music and how this particular piece might play into that?
Sure. Hi, everybody. And thank you, Brian, for this wonderful piece. And also thank you for coming to the new music concert I played last night. That was really sweet. Like so many other New York freelancers, I have done everything from playing many, many operas in the pit with the Met over the years to playing Broadway shows like King and I and chamber music, American Symphony, what have you. It's really, it's been a wonderful career that has stretched me in a lot of different directions. And I played piccolo a lot. I played flute. I have recently just played a big alto flute solo that's a relatively new piece too. And I just was going to say something about kind of the extended techniques part, which I think maybe the flute featured mostly in this piece more than the other instruments. And Brian, for those of you that might not be familiar with it, there was flutter tonguing, which is when you're, instead of playing just a straight sound, you're actually literally fluttering your tongue, which gives you sort of a buzzy kind of sound. And then Brian also asked me to do something called beatboxing, which is a technique where you speak into the flute on a particular consonant and while fingering a note. So
can you show us? Do you have your flute there?
Pardon? Oh,
you don't.
Geez. Yes, hang on.
All right, here we go. We're going to
Wow.
hear something from Diva.
So instead of playing a regular note, I would go. So it's like a spitting kind of almost sound, I guess, if that's coming through. And the flutter tongue would be. And I like how you kind of integrated some, beautiful tonal sounds with this other stuff. I almost felt like in this Wounded Nation thing that my little they were like exclamations to go along with what else was happening. And they were, almost like I was the gadfly a little bit in there, just like saying, pointing out that things are not normal in a certain way. So
I feel like there's going to be a YouTube channel in the near future just called Diva, where you just do beatboxing.
Well, there are some flutists out there that specialize in beatboxing that are just fantastic at it. I would not say that I'm in that category, but at least I can muddle my way through when I need to. So,
well, I heard Lizzo at the Grammys this year.
Pardon?
I heard Lizzo at the Grammys, and she picked up her flute, and she sounded pretty good.
Yeah, she's really amazing at that stuff. I just wanted to say one other thing, which was about this, everybody's talked about what it's like to be putting this together and playing in this situation. And, at one point, I think I wrote to everybody that this is the first time I've ever rehearsed chamber music on email. We were like emailing each other, measure this, I think it should be that, and the other. Whereas if we were all together, we would just be talking about it. So it takes a lot longer to do it this way. And certainly I want to shout out to Bart Plateau, who really worked so hard to try to combine all of us into one, cohesive, hopefully, chamber piece. And Brian, I know you've composed other music for flute too, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully playing more of your music soon.
Yeah, Brian, it sounds like you've got a bunch of new fans here. And there was a pretty nerdy question here for you. So this was from Isab Garcia, who asked, who said that their first impression of the piece was very rich content laid out in a transparent instrumentation. And how did you conceive the relationship between the ensemble and the emotions?
That's good. I'll do my best with this one. Between the ensemble and the emotions, for me, tone and timbre is so tied into emotion. And I think of just even like breath tones from the flute, for example. I think of those as sighs. So yeah, like exclamations, like you explained, Ms. Deep, it's exactly that. Everything that a player does for me has to have a purpose. Whether it's a solo bass line or just the extension of a range of tones in different ways. And just even though they were separated, I've just kind of used my imagination as to how this might sound, in a hall with people feeding off of each other, even though I knew that wouldn't be the case, so that I could write it in a way where the tones could play off of each other and feel very organic in that way. I hope I'm answering your question. I think I've forgotten it by now. But yeah.
That was a beautiful answer.
Yeah, it's all tied in.
I wanted to ask Susan, because Susan, you're kind of one of my musical heroes in New York. You do so much new music. I mean, you play premieres of so many different composers over the years. I mean, I'm remembering the ones that stick out in my head, one of Charles Warren, and I've heard you play Barrio, other things. And I just wanted to know, and then of course your daughter is kind of following in your footsteps as just a phenomenal violinist who just plays, just plays the hell out of everything. But in any case, you've played in ACO for many years. Can you talk about that experience of doing new music and how that relates to this project and others?
Sure. First of all, Brian, thank you for a wonderful piece and a wonderful harp part. It was a challenge. I had to practice a lot. My part was just, I was moving my fingers quite a bit all the time, which was marvelous because for myself, if I don't have something to practice for, I don't practice. But this was a challenge, and it was really, really great. And I have to thank my daughter Annette, my other daughter who's in theater and TV, for holding her iPad up so that you could see what I was doing. And bravo to my colleagues too. Yes, I've been involved in playing new music for a very, very long time. I'm passionate about it, and I'm continuing to do it. And I hope I have many, many more years to keep commissioning and performing, recording. ACO has been a major part of my life. I'm in it. I believe I joined the second year. There was no harp the first year, and I've been with it ever since. And it is so exciting. We hear so much different music and from so many composers and going through the generations. ACO, when was it founded? And how many years is it now? 30 something?
About 40 something.
Oh my gosh.
About 1977.
And think of how many composers we've had.
Aaron Copland was at the first concert giving, or one of the very first concerts giving the inaugural address.
Yeah. And Leonard Bernstein conducted us once, and that was fantastic. He did David Diamonds, it was the big premiere on that program. And I have such marvelous colleagues, as you can hear and see from this project that we've just completed. It's just a thrill to work with people who are so devoted to doing this new music, because I think we have to keep encouraging people to make the arts live on and on and on. And this was a very high caliber piece, I must say. Brian, congratulations. And I just want us to get together to play. We talked about playing live. I'm actually doing a neighborhood concert in 2 weeks, two of them, one in Flushing, Queens, and one in Forest Hills, where I live, in front of my house on my Irish harp, because I don't want to put my good harp outside, with a percussionist who's playing small percussion instruments. It's a group that I'm in percussion. And I can't wait to perform live. I've invited all my neighbors. It's called a walk-by concert, because we don't want crowds to gather, so people can just walk by and listen to what they want. But this new music has really been a major part of my life.
Well, thank you all so much. You're all kind of musical heroes to so many of us, and we've of course worked together many times. I've worked with all of you, as performers, and I know how grateful Brian probably feels right now for your hard work. And Brian, thank you for the beautiful piece. I'm sure they're really happy to have chosen to work with you and asked you to do this commission. So I'm sure that they look forward to playing together upside down or right side up.
I'm sorry, I ran out of battery on my other thing. I got it.
Hey,
Thank you, Derek.
Thank
you, Derek.
Thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for being
Derek. It was just great to, you're a wonderful host, and you're such an inspiration to all of us as well. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, Brian, again for joining us. Thanks to our team.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to say thank you all for keeping art alive during this time. Viewers as well. This is our last Connecting ACO Community. You can watch this video again and again at Music on the Rebound if you like, and on ACO's YouTube channel. And in 2 weeks, we're going to return with a whole host of new professional development webinars in which ACO will explore many, many facets of an orchestra that is involved with new music. And next week, you're going to hear from Wayne Dumaine, who is the principal trumpet of ACO, along with Alicia Lawyer from the River Oaks Chamber Orchestra, the principal oboe and artistic director. And you're going to hear from Kyu Young Kim, who is one of the principal violins at the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra. And they're going to be joining me as we do an orchestra musicians roundtable, talking a little bit like we did today about the experience of orchestra musicians around the country and what they do and how they do it. So our very first webinar happens to take place on a historic date of October 14th. You mentioned Leonard Bernstein. That's the date that he passed away 30 years ago. It also happens to be the birthday of Kaya Sarayaho, the composer, and the birthday of Derek Bermel, the composer. Oh my God. I'm doing this on my birthday.
Yay!
Hey, so for more information about the upcoming schedule of the ACO Professional Development Seminars, please go to our website. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you to the audience as well. Stay safe.
Bye. Bye, everyone.